So I just had a echo there. All right, so yeah, so today is the first part of that, where we have a look at departure routes. I know some of you guys have quite often asked me to do a workshop on how to find the correct departure procedure. We'll have a look at that first of all, and then we'll go through the communications explicitly for getting the clearance. Later, at a later stage, later workshops, we'll go through the different phases of the flight: taxiing, takeoff, climb, cruise, descent, etc., etc. So we'll take it bit by bit, and then hopefully at the end of the workshop series, you will be able to do a flight on VATSIM or Aveo. And so we'll start with the first page. Now, it doesn't matter if you are flying offline, online. I'm sure that when you do your flight planning via SimBrief or PFPX or whatever you take, you immediately have a big problem saying, okay, I have like 5 different departure routes for this one runway leading to the initial fix or the exit point for my departure. So which departure route do I actually take? And I can tell you that from my career, there are some airports where I was always pre-planning the flight, and I was like, man, I was here like 5 weeks ago or something. What departure route did we fly then? And if you're lucky, you'll remember, or your your co-pilot will remember. If not, well, then the only way you can get around that problem is just simply call clearance delivery and say, sorry, can you please confirm our departure route? And that way he will give you the departure route. Obviously, if you're flying offline, you don't have that luxury. Then you will have to find the departure route yourself. And there is a workaround where you can actually find some subtle differences and then find out which departure route you will need to take. Before we get to that, let me just go through the reason why we have departure routes. What do you think, guys? What's the main reason to have departure routes? That's a very important issue, yeah. Big airports that have a lot of traffic need to organize. So that's one big reason. Another big reason is obviously noise abatement. The biggest reason, however, why they've implemented departure routes is to make sure that aircraft have a obstacle clearance. And obviously, if you have an airport where there's no mountains around, well, okay, then obstacle isn't going to be such a big problem. However, let's take Zurich, let's take Geneva, all these airports, Innsbruck, all these airports have high terrain around them. And so the air traffic control or the authorities that are responsible for making these departure routes will make sure that they publish routes that give the aircraft a certain amount of obstacle clearance. And I'm not going to bore you with the exact numbers, how much clearance you get. However, I want to just pinpoint one big thing. If you look at the charts, and sometimes you see, let's have a look, you will see on the text, you will have, for example, the SID requires a minimum climb gradient of 450 feet per nautical mile. And that equals to 7.4% until passing blah, blah, blah. Now that means you as a pilot, you have to make sure that your aircraft with the certain weight, with the certain conditions, the meteorological conditions, is capable of maintaining that climb rate on that climb gradient. If you are able to maintain that climb gradient, then air traffic control or the authorities there who made the departure route will guarantee an obstacle clearance. So you won't hit any mountains, obviously, as long as you stay on the path. That's another big thing. Right? If there's no minimum climb gradient published, then you'll have to maintain 3.3%. Now that's the minimum climb gradient the aircraft has to maintain at all times. Okay, so let's have a look at the departure routes. For that, I would like you to have a look at Malpensa. Now, when you do the flight planning from Malpensa to Copenhagen, oh, there's a typo there. It's not Echo Kilo X-Ray Hotel, it's Echo Kilo Charlie Hotel. If you do that departure, Simbrief will give out the first point Saronno. And usually it gives out a departure route. Guys, be very careful with these departure routes from Simbrief. They are not always correct. And so let's just say Saronno is the first fix from where an airway leads off. So in this case, it would be Lima 615 airway to DZIP and so on. So Saronno is going to be our exit point. Right. Then we look at the Navigraph charts. I'm not sure. Does everybody have the new system? Okay. So if you take the new system, you can filter it. So you can type in Sierra Romeo November, and then you only have 4 charts left available. And so you have the Farag 5 X-ray and the Serrano 5 Whiskey departure. Then you have the Serrano 5 Lima and Serrano 5 Mike RNAV departures. Then you have the Serrano 5 Sierra RNAV departure. And then you'll have the Serrano 7 Golf and 5 hotel departures. So you filtered out those. But man, it's still, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, at least 5, 6 departure routes available. All right, darn, okay. So let's go for the first one, the Farag 5 X-ray Serrano 5 Whiskey departure. What does it say there? Oh, okay, you can see immediately, hey, that's leading off to the south. So that's for runway 17, right? We can scrap that immediately. We don't need to look at that. That is definitely not a valid departure route for us. Then we have a look at the Serrano 5 Lima and 5 Mike, and it says RNAV departure. Now, that's the thing, RNAV. Here comes the question. Is your aircraft capable of flying RNAV? And obviously in a simulator, if you have a 737, A320, and so on, it of course has RNAV capability. These planes are built that way. They have GPS, or they have an updating system for the INS that allows to fly RNAV 1. And if you are interested, RNAV 1 is an RNAV with 1 mile error, which is allowed left and right of track. And when you look in your FMS or on the nav display, it will say ANP. So RNP is the required navigational position, and ANP is the actual navigation position. And so the actual navigation position, if you have GPS update, will be around 0.02, 0.05 miles. So very, very, very accurate. And yes, of course, in that case, you can, of course, fly the departure. Oh yes, MCK, very nice. So I did a video on of departures and arrival procedures. I'm sometimes surprised what kind of videos I did. I don't even remember that one. Thanks, MCK. Great. Okay, so let's just say for some reason we don't have an RNAV capable aircraft. All right, so we can scrap those 2 departure routes. And then we're left with the 5 Sierra. Well, it's RNAV as well. Okay, we can scrap that as well. So we're left with the 7 Golf and 5 hotel departures. So we're left with 2 of those 6 departures. And we can see 3-5 right, that's our expected departure runway. And there's one departure route, that's the 7 Golf, that has a wide arc. It turns right later to Serrano. And then there's the other one, that's the 5 hotel departure. And that turns at 1,300 feet to the right. And so it's kind of a shortcut. And so here comes the idea. All right, is mountainous terrain. Oh, I'm having a shortcut. Obviously, that means there will be a higher climb gradient that has to be fulfilled. Yeah. On the departure route, so the 7 Golf does a wide arc, right? So it goes pretty much to the north until 4.1 miles from Malpensa, and then turns right to intercept the 125 radial towards Serrano. So that's more track miles than the 5 hotel, because the 5 hotel goes right at 1300 feet. And that means a shortcut, right? So the track miles is going to be less on the 5 hotel compared to the 7 Golf, which then equals to a higher required climb rate, all right? Because nope, not quite. If you look exactly, that's the difference. 7 Golf says you have to maintain 7.5% only until until you have 3,000 feet. After that, you only need 3.3%. The 5 hotel, so the shorter one, needs 7.58% until passing 3,000 feet, and then not 3.3, no, it needs a higher gradient of 5.76%. Okay, this puts you as a pilot in a little bit of a problem, because 3,000 feet will be an acceleration altitude for you to accelerate, which you probably won't be able to do normally if you maintain a 5.76% gradient until, well, until the initial altitude, which is going to be, let's have a look. It says climb to 6,000. No, that's on transition. Well, in the Jeppesen charts, they have a little table, and it says, for example, ground speed. Let's say you're doing 200 knots ground speed. You will need to do 1,537 feet per minute until 3,000 feet. And then for the 5 hotel departure, you're going to need at least 1,167 feet per minute, right, to maintain that. No, you don't need it, because it says here you need to maintain at least 1,167 feet per minute. Climb. You have a vertical speed indicator in your cockpit, and so you, exactly, yeah. And so yeah, you have a software. However, that will only be valid until the normal acceleration altitude, and that's what I mean. That puts the pilot in a bit of a problem, because he has to, from his experience, know whether or not he can actually maintain that climb rate. And you can say that in the jet with 2 engines, a normal like medium jet, 737, A320, yes, you will be able to maintain 1,100, 1,200 feet per minute if you don't accelerate, right? So you delay your acceleration phase to say 5,000 feet, and then you're going to be maintaining 2,000 feet a minute rate of climb at that point. So that's where the experience comes in, obviously. Yeah, that's all I can say to that. And that's the difference. Let's just concentrate on the fact that that's the difference between these 2 departure routes. So if you are unsure if you are able to manage those 5.76% after 3,000 feet, well, then take the longer routing, right? Because there you only need those 7.58 until 3,000 feet. And after 3,000 feet, that's it. You only need 3.3%. Right. And so, yeah, let's say you're a heavy aircraft, a big aircraft, or you say I'm heavy today, or the weather conditions are such that I cannot take the 5 hotel, I cannot guarantee the climb rates. Okay, I'm going to have to take 7 Golf as well. And you would have to tell air traffic control, obviously. So let's say air traffic control says, oh, cleared via so-and-so, Copenhagen, Serrano 5 hotel departure. Oh, you're going to say, I'm sorry, I can't accept that due to climb restrictions. And then he will refile you for 7 Golf. All right, let's get back to our example. Let's say we are actually RNF capable, which we are most of the time. Then we have 3 more departures to choose from. So we have the 5 Lima, the 5 Mike, and the 5 Sierra. All right, still complicated, right? We can pretty much see that. Let's have a look at 5 Lima and 5 Mike. Here again, you are in need to maintain certain climb rates. However, it says here in the text for the 5 Lima and the 5 Mike, it says 7.4% until passing 3,000 feet. It does not distinguish regarding the climb rates. However, there is a difference. Can somebody spot that between the 2 departure routes, what the difference here is? Exactly. So that could be a problem for you if you have a clean speed of say 220 knots. Then obviously, if you take 5 mic, you cannot accelerate to clean speed, correct? So that could be a limiting factor for you. And then you would have to take 5 Lima, the longer way around, because there you can have maximum speed of 220 knots. But personally, if I look at the track distance, 2 miles, another 2 or 3 miles, it's 5 miles, and then 3 to Mike Charlie 603, so 8 miles. I would be maybe at 10,000 feet. And that is fine in the A320 because in A320 I know I'm allowed to have flaps out until 20,000 feet. But there might be aircraft types where you're not allowed to extend flaps above 10,000 feet. So again, you might need to take the longer departure route. And that's the difference between these two routes, exactly, the maximum speed. And it's frustrating, I know it's frustrating because these differences can be so subtle and you have to look through all the data, all right? But that is just the way it is. That's the way it's in real life as well. They don't make it easy for the pilots. If in doubt, I tell you what, if in doubt, if you somehow have a gut feeling that the shorter routing, I'm not sure, speed, climb rate, well, then take the longer routing, right? It's not that much longer. It's maybe 3 miles longer, 2 miles longer, not even that. So no worries. Yeah, I'm just explaining the differences between these routes. That's all. All right. Now, the 5 Sierra RNF departure. That's the third one here. Let's have a look at the other chart and the Lido charts. Oh yeah, it's also 5 Sierra. That is interesting because the 5 Sierra on the Lido charts, you will see immediately that it turns even earlier. Because here it says 1300 feet, then bam, right turn. And the ball node, don't see the ball node here, but for the Jeppesen charts, well, it's a completely separate chart. It's not it doesn't have the overlay like Lido for the 5 Lima, 5 Mike. So the only difference I can see with the 5 Sierra is the fact that there's no waypoint coded for the first right turn. So Mike Charlie 611 is not coded in the 5 Sierra departure, meaning that you will climb 1300 feet and then turn right, track 070. So initially that would be like a basic departure and then joining an RNF departure later on. So that's kind of a mixture. I can only suspect that maybe this will be the case that you have problems getting a GPS update near the ground and you need to gain some altitude first. But that's just speculation on my side. I've never flown that. I've never seen that in real life. So, but that's the difference I can see immediately when I compare the 5 Sierra to the 5 Lima or the 5 Mike departure. All right. This example here is one of the most complicated I've chosen, and that is just to kind of show you an approach where you can cancel out some departure routes immediately by looking at the fact, is it RNAV, is it conventional? And then again, have a look at the climb rates. Can I maintain the climb rates? What's the difference? And then you will actually be able to pinpoint either the exact departure route or you're left with only 2 departure routes. In that case, once air traffic control gives you the clearance, you won't be surprised because either it'll be 5 Lima in this case or the 5 Mike. Hey, then you know. All right. So the next example I was planning to look at was, I think, London Heathrow. And so let's say we have runway 09 left in use. Oh, no, sorry, that's 27 right in this case. So 27 right in use. And the first point is going to be Brookmans Park. And from there we have the airways. So have a look and, oh, I didn't put the answer on the next page. I'm going to put that in later. So have a look through that. And then if you like, tell me which departure route you would expect. 7 Foxtrot. Anybody else would choose a different one? Yeah, MCK would choose 7 Foxtrot, okay. Yeah, exactly. So in this case, like you can see, it's very precise because, well, if you take off 27 right, the only departure route available to get you to Brookmans Park is in fact a Park 7 Foxtrot. Is this an RNAV departure or is this a conventional departure? Exactly. Of course, it doesn't say RNAV on the top. All right, I might have to add that later on then. I'm just downloading charts from Oslo because there are airports nowadays where you don't have conventional or overlay departures. You only have pure RNAV departure routes. Oh yes, so the Cloud Cities, he's really experienced on the US kind of departures. So in the US, he writes required acceleration to 250 knots as soon as possible after takeoff. Exactly, so that's a form of minimum speed restriction. Exactly. Yeah. And today, guys, this is only the European side. I will do, of course, the US side and another tutorial later on once I've covered everything in Europe. All right, Oslo. Yeah, Oslo is an example where you don't have any RNAV, normal departure routes. It's only RNAV. So what if you have an aircraft that doesn't come with RNAV in Oslo? So it's a lot of text there, right? The same kind of things, transition altitudes and instructions to contact the radar, etc., etc. Then you have yeah, the required climb gradients. So let's say, for example, 01 left, it says 300 feet per nautical mile or 5% up to 4,000 feet. And further down, it says initial climb clearance 4,000 feet and expect further climb by Oslo approach. And initially for 01 left, climb on track 013 to 2,000 feet and then start turn according to ATC clearance, meaning that air traffic control will give you a precise heading or track to maintain after departure. So the air traffic control will tell you and give you instructions, obviously. So they have a backup system available for those who don't have RNAV capability. But the Scandinavian airports seem to be the first ones that don't have any more conventional departures. And that you can expect, I've read some news here in Germany that they are planning with the next, say, 10, 15 years to switch off a lot of VORs and NDBs in Germany. So they are transitioning more and more towards pure RNAV approaches and departures. All right. Okay, so I think that's pretty much covered everything regarding departure routes. Arrival routes, I'll cover that again once we do the communication for arrival. But it's the same deal. It's no big mystery. It's just if you have 2 or 3 different arrival routes, well, have a look. Have a look at the restrictions. Have a look at the tracks, whatever, and then you can. Oh yeah, transitions. Okay, let's go back to Milano Malpensa. Because from experience, I can say that the departure routes don't actually end at Saronno. So what you would usually have is a point called Abesi if you're going towards the north. And so you have the so-called transitions. Yeah, transitions are sometimes, I mean, the US, I think, has a bit simpler system. Now in Europe, sometimes, yeah, it is a mess, I have to admit. It really is a mess. So we know initially we are leaving via Saronno. And so we have to have a look. If we type filter Abesi, then we are left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 charts. All right, so we'll take the first one. It says Abesi 5 Victor. Well, no, that is towards the west. So we can throw that off straight away. Then we have the Abesi 7 X-ray. But it says here in the text, it's runway 35 left transition. Disregard. We have taken off on 35 right. Have a look at 7 Yankee. That's going via Irkut. No, we don't have Irkut on our route. We have Serrano on our route. All right, scrap that. And we have Abesi 9 Quebec going via Serrano. Oh, okay, Serrano. And it says runway 17 left right or 35 right transitions. Hey, 35 right, that's our departure route. And there we go, via Serrano. Let's have a look at the last one, Abesi 9 Whiskey. No, again, that's towards the west. We don't have to do anything with that. All right, and that's it. So that's the only plausible transition that we have to fly, or we can fly, is the Abesi 9 Quebec. And that's it. That's how you find the transition in this case. Go from the top, right? So first of all, you look through all the charts. Okay, which one do we have until the next fix? That is only flight plan. Okay, so we're left with 5 charts. Have a look, departure runways. Then most of the time you can throw at least 1 or 2 of these charts. Then you can have, a look, which point is that, like in this case, Serrano, or is it Irkut? You can throw some more charts out. And most of the time you will be left with only 1 chart at the end. And then you know exactly which transition you will need to fly. If you're online, quite honestly, just ask the ATC controller. He will tell you. Oh, Gilby, no, I know flying isn't simple, trust me. I've been sitting there so often scratching my head, especially with, being under time constraints, meeting slot times, etc. And man, but again, I had the luxury always to be able to just ask the air traffic controller. Yeah, tempo sits. Now, again, it depends on how far you want to take flight simulation. So in real life, let me start there. In real life, tempo sits will be in force, for example, when a VOR station is inoperative, right? So let's say you have a departure route where it is also coded via a VOR radial. Oh, my Navigraph has stopped working. All right. So you look at the NOTAMs. So in the NOTAMs it says this VR is inoperative. Refer to temporary chart so and so. And then you'll know exactly, okay, I have to use tempo charts. It's just temporarily because of work being done on either nav8 or maybe, for example, they have an airspace closure. Let's take Hamburg, right? They had the summit meeting there. Well, some of the departure routes wouldn't be open, and that way, yeah, you will need to look at the tempo charts. Yeah. All right, just restarting my. All right, communications. All right, here it goes. Okay, so communications. I've written down this is an error that frightens a lot of people, and it shouldn't be, because the wordings are very standardized. And in fact, ICAO actually states that, and ICAO has defined that as follows. ICAO phraseologies are developed to provide efficient, clear, concise, and unambiguous communications. And constant attention should be given to the correct use of ICAO phraseologies in all instances in which they are applicable, meaning that you shouldn't be trying to be cool while communicating with ATC. Give you a good example. I've heard so many silly replies from professional airline pilots, and I've just put down one example here, right? United 522, cleared for takeoff runway 22. Answer from United 522, Roger, here we go. Is that a proper readback? No, it's not. Yeah, but I've heard that so many times. I don't know, but it can lead to maybe not in this instance, but sometimes not using the proper phraseology can actually lead to misunderstandings and has in the past led to accidents. So yes, very important to use standardized phraseology. Okay, so that's one thing you will have to learn if you want to talk or use VATSIM, IVEO, or Pilot Edge for that matter. And you will have to use these phrases that are set by the ICAO standard. Question was the cloud cities. You're not the only one. I of course have to admit that after a certain time you become lazy and maybe not read back the clearance as you should be doing. But yeah, you have to make sure you try as hard as you can to stay up to the standard. Okay, link that tower in Los Angeles teaches Jordanian pilot to read instructions back properly. Yeah, very good. There you go. Exactly. Routine is one of the big killers in aviation. Um, and yeah, you just have to make sure that every time you fly, you have to make sure that, just try to concentrate on using SOPs, standard operating procedures. Exactly. Does ATC report the pilots for using? No, not really. Of course, if it gets dangerous, everything's recorded. Um, so if something does happen, well, you're gonna get your your meeting with your chief without biscuits, definitely. Right. I've put down first of all basic rules. When air traffic control calls us, they will always start the transmission with our call sign. All right, always. For us pilots, we can decide whether or not to read back with the call sign at the beginning or the end of the clearance. That's a luxury that we have. Obviously, some airlines teach their pilots to make sure to read back the call sign first, but it's not a necessity. So if you feel better, and you've heard me many times on stream that I quite often read back to clearance, and at the end I will say my call sign. That's perfectly fine. If you contact an ATC station for the first time, you should try to first of all use the ATC call sign. So for example, Heathrow delivery or Heathrow tower, Heathrow ground, and then your call sign, and then followed by the message. That would be the normal way to communicate. And again, yeah, try to avoid courtesies. I know it's very difficult. I have my difficulties with that because I'm a polite guy, right? So I like saying thank you and please, right? But with radio telephony, you shouldn't do that really, right? Try to keep it out. I mean, of course, you can say good morning. I mean, like, that's fine, right? Good morning, that's good. But try to keep that to a certain limit. And yeah, avoid certain words like this is Lufthansa, so and so. I know I'm doing that. And next time, now that you guys know I'm not supposed to do that on stream, you can tell me off for doing that. And I will promise I will try to get better. But yeah, try to keep that to minimum, even though it is hard work. All right, then we have some important words and phrases. I'm not going to go through all of these. You've heard some of them, right? Negative, Wilco, and so on. And I've written down the meaning of that. Have a read through that, and then you won't be surprised if you hear that on the radio. Yeah, the cloud cities. I'm sure you guys will correct me many, many times now. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Hey, buddy. Mm. No, you wouldn't say that in real life. And what I have done in certain instances, for example, when a air traffic controller has given me really good radar vectors, right? Pinpoint to the exact point of intercept, meaning that I had the least amount of track miles, then I know he's done a good job, right? And then I will say excellent vectors, for example. That's what I would say. But apart from that, yeah, you would, like I said, leave everything out. Just keep right. Let's have a look at the documents. Okay, so I've prepared a standard, right? So we have call sign, position, ATIS, request clearance. So when you request a clearance, you say, for example, Heathrow delivery, Speedbird 522, an Airbus A320, and this one has to be set in London. That's a special kind of deal. Some airports, you will find that in the airport operation information. You have to say a call sign. So that's non-standard, but I've put that in here. So Airbus A320, stand is 215, information Charlie, request clearance to Edinburgh. All right, that would be the standard phraseology. Then ATC would typically say, all right, Speedbird 522, cleared to Edinburgh via the Buzzard 3 kilo departure, runway 09 left, climb 6,000 feet, squawk 5222. Then comes your readback, same way, okay, and for Azabico especially, Speedbird 522, so call sign first, so please use that that way as well. Cleared to Edinburgh via the Buzzard 3 kilo departure, runway 9 left, climb 6,000, squawk 5222. And that's it. That's the whole magic of getting your departure clearance. So in order not to be surprised, make yourself a little layout like I've done below that text. Oh, there's another typo there. Departure. I need to correct that as well. Right, so departure clearance layout. When requesting clearance, write down your call sign in that formula, then write down the position, the Charlie, ATIS information, because you have to get the ATIS information before you start your aircraft, and then destination, right? So you have it all written down, and when you request a clearance, you know exactly what you need to do. First, you read your call sign, the parking position, ATIS Charlie, destination. And then receiving clearance, he will say clear to Edinburgh. That's the clearance limit, right? Then the SID, the runway, initial altitude, squawk. And he might give you a departure frequency and additional infos, right? Whatever. And so I've left the space to use for you to write down. And on the last page, it didn't show up. I had a blank formula for you to print out. Why is it not showing? Interesting. It's showing on my Open Office document. You mean where can you get them? Well, when you listen to the, if VETSIM has an ATIS available, you will listen to the ATIS information and it says, this is airport information, Charlie, time, so-and-so, weather report. And you know, that's the code. And so you say you've received ATIS Charlie, and then air traffic control can check that that is the most accurate or the latest ATIS information available. So it's a little code in that. So let's, for example, say you've listened to the ATIS Charlie, but in the meantime, a special ATIS has come out because something has changed with the weather, and then it's information Delta, and you call in and say, ATIS Charlie, then he will correct you and you say, oh, information now is Delta. And that way you know you have to recheck the ATIS. Right. Okay, guys, is there any questions left over? You enter the squawk code, and at that point you still leave the transponder off. Nearly all airports, I know the big airports, they require you to activate the transponder once you start moving. And so with the before start items, you would actually start the transponder as well, or switch on the transponder. Okay, I'll upload the latest file one more time, and there on the last page you have the form box there that I've made for you guys. and you can print it out and use it, or you make your own form books. But that has helped me greatly at the beginning when you need to get the clearance correct. And like I said, it's a standard kind of procedure all the time. All right. I'm not sure if everybody wants to join the group flight. If not, thank you much for coming by. There's quite many people here. That's much appreciated. I like that. And so if there's any questions left over, maybe tomorrow you say, oh, I've got a question. Well, write it down in the subscriber channel and I will answer that as fast as I can.